policy ideas or concerns with your elected representatives. So can I just ask, and I think there are quite a few tonight, can I ask, and please keep it as quick as you can so we can kick off, the councillors in the room, just to stand up briefly and introduce yourself and just say which ward you're from. The Wimbledon councillors, if you could just stand up very briefly and say hello and introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Dan Holden. I represent the Hillside Ward and also Deputy Leader of the Conservatives.
Ed Gretton, Councillor Ed Wimbledon Park, and responsible for the Conservative Party for matters of concerning education and young people across the borough.
I'm
Paul Colan from Trinity Ward.
Okay, thank you everybody. So let's begin with open forum. We've had two people indicate that they want to speak. It is only 20 minutes, so if both speakers who've indicated they'd like to speak, if they could be as quick as possible within reason, and I will be very mean tonight and guillotine you because it is important to get through the agenda. Some meetings have less, but tonight we do have quite a lot on. So Ingrid, would you like to go first?
Yes. Do you want me to set up?
Yes, please do, yeah.
Okay, around the Bioelectromagnetic Research Initiative, and I have asked the Council several times about the future plans with Aquiva and their Wi-Fi network, because Aquiva is actually publicly stated that they will install 5G antennas in lampposts. That's on public record. But I don't seem to get any proper answers from Merton Council as to when and if they do that, although I know that they are updating their wireless network. Now, I have here in front of me a petition of 220 scientists worldwide, and anybody can look at that on EMF Alliance and my website, they will look. This is that we undersigned more than 220 scientists and doctors from 35 countries recommend the moratorium on the rollout of the 5th generation 5G for telecommunication and potential hazard for human health and the environment have been fully investigated by scientists independent from industry. 5G will substantially increase exposure to radio frequency electromagnetic fields on top of 2G, 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi, etc. For telecommunications already in place, RF EMF has been proven to be harmful to humans and the environment. Now, 5G leads to massive frequency electromagnetic fields on top of. I just want to give an example. Presently, about 11 meters from a Mars, from a lunar Mars, we have the allowance is 61 volts per meter. That is, you can only stay in that area for 7 minutes. Now with 5G, it will be 120 volts per meter. And everybody will be exposed to 61 volts per meter. Because every 100 meter in lampposts, you will have the 5G network. It is very important that it is looked at before the rollout. There has been no research done on this, no health research done on this. I've written to my MP asking him to ask Public Health England, but nothing. Now, it's been rolled out in America. 300 mayors of American cities have threatened to sue the FCC if they insist on the 5G rollout. I've just got a letter from my friend in Jacksonville, Florida, who told me that 5G is now deployed in Jacksonville, and everybody is sweating like mad because it's causing sweating. Everybody can look at this scientist appeal on either my website or on EMF Alliance, and we are part of EMF Alliance, International Alliance Against EMFs. It's very important that I get proper answers from Merton, which I don't seem to get. Either they don't know about it, or or they're not asking the right questions and giving me the right answers.
Okay, Ingrid, thank you so much. So Ingrid, Chris actually does have an answer for you because you were good enough to give us notice of what you wanted to say. So thank you for that, and that's meant that Chris has been able to do some digging around for you.
So the latest I have is that they're trying to arrange a meeting with the company. Sorry, I've forgotten their name, but the company you mentioned, to try and get an idea of what the schedule and what they're planning to do and when they're planning to do it. But as far as we're aware, we don't have any powers to stop them with the progress in the same way we didn't with previous rollouts. So we can find out the schedule and what's happening and when, but we're not aware of any powers that individual authorities have to prevent it from happening.
So in other words, even if you know that there are health effects from all these scientists, you can't do anything about it?
At the moment, that's our understanding, yeah.
That's how to get planning permission for that.
But apparently it's a national scheme, so no. Because it's not a new structure, it's embedded within the existing network. So the science and the technical bit is well beyond my understanding or knowledge. That was the advice I've given.
If you don't understand it, you shouldn't do it. Isn't that what they say?
Well, I'm not doing it, but there's a good reason why I'm not in charge of that. So I don't understand that bit, but the advice I got was that we're not aware of any powers we have to block it.
Will the council undertake to do more than speak to the people that are wanting to roll it out and try and get some independent views on it?
So thank you for that, and that view will be fed back by Chris into the process. Okay, any other comments? So we'll keep you posted. Thank you, Ingrid, for bringing that up. Peter?
Thank you. I've just given everyone a flyer on the school which is proposed in the south of Wimbledon. My reason for feeling strongly about this is if this goes ahead, I think this will be a crime against the 350 young children in Merton Primary School, which is identified by the Mayor's report published this year, May, as one of the most polluted school sites in the whole of London, and also to the 1,100 children who are going to go to this 5-storey air-sealed school on that site. I really am quite alarmed that the council can still be going ahead with this. Some of you may have read the Guardian. The Harris Federation said, the Harris Academy, who are planning the school, says there's nothing to worry about. As part of the planning process, we had an independent analysis of air quality from the site commission. This has raised no concerns about the site. Amazing, they didn't actually find the Mayor of London's report on this site of any concern at all. Of course, it was an air quality commission by their own people. So on page 27, there are proposals for a new school directly east of the primary school. This will replace the existing community centre. The head teacher is very concerned about the impact that the additional school on the High Path will have on the transport network and air quality. The new secondary school demolition and construction work will result in increased traffic and therefore increased emissions. Page 30. Pupils are exposed to polluted streets while walking to and from the school. Page 36. Then, to add insult to injury, Merton Council produced their own air quality report on May this year. And in that report, it says that in 2017 we provided an air quality information day at Merton Abbey School, where pollution levels are amongst the highest in the borough. So we've basically got a system where the planning committee of Merton Council, and Stephen Allenbridge is here, the leader of the council, are going to press ahead with the construction of a secondary school. What is worse, not only are the pollution level now dangerously high, according to the Mayor and Merton Council, but because the High Path estate is going to be doubled in density, doubling the car parking spaces and the number of bedrooms, the pollution levels will increase. When I spoke at a meeting the other week, a councillor said don't worry, we can plant a few trees. This is probably the same kind of people who are saying there's no need to worry about the air quality. It's quite, I've only got grandchildren, and they're not going to school in Merton, but my son went to school in Merton. I would not send a child of mine to that primary school now, and I certainly wouldn't send them in the future. And if you agree with that, I would ask you to really press the Mayor of London, the Chairman of the Planning Committee, this man here, who I don't think has read the Mayor's report, to stop this scheme. There's plenty of other sites. Merton's got more open space than any other London borough. We've only got a month to stop this. If it goes ahead, children in the Mayor's own leaflet are dying in London because of air pollution. If this goes ahead, it's a crime.
Thank you, Peter. So Peter has given a proposal and a request that people who feel strongly about what he said, that you lobby in the way that he said. That being said, given that Peter has already given a recommendation, is there anybody who has a really pressing desire to comment further?
I would just like to make one observation. This is an open forum, and I'm shocked that Mr. Alan Wright has turned his back on Mr. Walker. I've had my issues with Mr. Walker in the past myself, but I think that was highly rude and inappropriate at what is meant to be an open forum.
Okay, what I would say, thank you for that, what I would say is that so far, in the time that I've been chair of this committee, although that didn't help Stephen, because I was about to say, we have avoided personal attacks, and I would like to, as far as possible, always make sure we do. No, I agree, it wasn't helpful of Stephen to do that. Okay, any other comments? Yes, at the back.
I just have 3 short comments. Having attended Merton Abbey School 4 years ago, than I can remember, one thing about the land grab, which Merton House is pretty good at across the borough, they're saying that there's too much space around Merton Abbey for primary school children, therefore the secondary can have a bit of it. Shouldn't it be celebrated that our youngest children have large amounts of space with mature trees in which to run about with and generally enjoy themselves? All this exercise is supposed to be getting them out of this obesity crisis that they lead themselves into. Secondly, it was said, even before the Planning Commission was mooted by Harris, that it was a challenging site. The challenges still appear to be ones of air quality, access and other things. I'll just correct these. The number of car parking spaces on Hyde Park is going to be halved, so there's going to be more people, but we're all going to be walking around there bumping into 700 kids going the other way. And it was admitted to me by the leader, or by the previous spokesperson on the council for children and young people at education, that the site was not the best site. It's basically what they thought they could afford and get away with it. They didn't bother to look at places that would be slightly better, that may actually involve digging into their pockets a little bit more to find out alternative things that maybe were closer to the playing fields, which this school does not have, and doesn't have a guarantee of having in perpetuity, amongst other things. So, Merton Council, typically like council.
Okay, thank you. Time for literally 1 or 2 more questions, comments.
Just a comment. The application, the planning application, has loaded some more documents, and in the last one, it shows that the construction operation and the site where they're going to place their heavy vehicles and the entrance to building this Harris School is right on the edge of the remaining green space of Merton Abbey School. So not only are they losing a part of their green in order to give it to Harris, to turn it into a multi-use games area, which the children in Merton Abbey would only get 3 hours per week use of it, they are also placing the construction area with the entrance to the vehicles right on the edge of Merton Abbey, which the Mayor has said is one of the most reliable schools in London. I don't know how or what Mr. Alan Brittis is thinking, but he has tweeted that the school is imminent, so I would like like to also be assured that the planning meeting, with the majority of Labour councillors there, will be fair and just and not be a predetermination. Thank you.
Okay, further, yes, madam?
There was another thing that as part of AgriVet going to be taken into account, which is going to implement lots of other tools and things in the private health that are agreed for the pensions. And also, regarding Merton Forum, that people were asked to make his school for Merton Forum themselves. They put the thing about this, they actually knocked it down. And there was a thing, there was a hearing that this was to be heard this week, I think, in private, that no public was allowed. How can they make in business and it doesn't exist anymore? And they've already started digging. And that really shows that the sign is something wrong somewhere.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, let's move on from that. I'm sorry, yes?
Hi, I'm Eleanor Springer, I'm one of the councillors in South Wimbledon, which is where this area is. So there are a few mistruths being spread that I just want to try and quickly address. And if any of you have concerns about this, and particularly if you're in my area, contact me about it. Really? So far, I've had no contact other from Sarah, who's I know. I have had no complaints from there. There are 188 pupils already at the school on the temporary site of Watley Avenue. None of their parents have contacted me to say how worried they are about this site. I'm in contact with the head of Merton Abbey. He's had more than enough opportunity to raise his concerns. He has some concerns about the ones that Sarah Wright points out about the access to the building. His concern is, as we've all talked about, air quality is an issue. He wants to do what he can to address air quality. He doesn't think that the school is going to make that any worse than it already has. It was just said that some of the Abbey Rec is being passed over for the school. That's a lie. Rutledge Foundation owns the Nursery Road Cave Field.
Just a tiny disturbance.
Sorry. Rutledge Foundation owns the playing fields in Nursery Road, and one of those is going to be able to be used by the secondary school, not as per one of the leaflets put out by another councillor, which said that the primary school pupils will have to go over there. That's an absolute lie. And yes, the primary school pupils will have access to the playgrounds that are being proposed. But I would just reiterate that. So I've been to the meetings aimed at parents wanting who were looking for schools to go to for their pupils, and they were all in favour of the school, and their first questions were, how do I get into it?
Can I respond, please? Can I have a quick response, please?
Okay,
if they were given a choice.
Can I please?
Yes, in a moment. So I will allow one or two more contributions, but Peter Walker has taken the opportunity to set out his case, and he has already asked, he's already given a recommendation tonight, which is please lobby if you feel strongly about it. So I don't want to go on and on with it, but if you want to come back very briefly, and then I do really want to move on.
Very briefly, the governors of Abbey Primary School have written in to express their concerns, which are very similar to all our concerns. The grab of the green, the fact the secondary school is going to be there, there's no provisions for bullying, even though there are provisions for the other school in Watley Avenue. That they're worried about the noise and the pollution during construction. They're worried about the pollution that's already happening there. And also, on the Nursery Road, where you say, the parents are really happy about this new school. I have met with parents outside Merton Abbey, and they haven't got a clue about what's happening just across their green. And secondly, the planning application, don't shake your head please, Eleanor, the planning application does not have the facts. It does not have readings of pollution on the site. It does not have the mayor's report saying that Merton Abbey, right next to that school, is actually a polluted site and one of the most polluted in London. It does not have readings about air pollution on the roads, adjacent roads. It has projections for 2020 based on some unreal, some unsubstantiated facts. And it is using air quality levels of, it's using a measurement of 60 UG metric versus 40, which is the legal EU standard. So they have completely misconstrued the air quality report, and that analyst who wrote the Paris report has twice been found to falsify or put erroneous air quality figures in same company that put the same figures in for the cement batching. Everybody here might know about it. The cement batching, which had to be withdrawn because they put erroneous figures in. So please do not insult us.
Okay, so this is no. Nobody's insulting you on this evening. So Eleanor, if you want to come back briefly, you can. Peter, if you want to wind up, that's fine, thank you. Eleanor, do you want to come back very briefly? Okay, that's fine. One more non-councillor speaker. Sorry, it's Eleanor's ward, that's why I've let her. Okay, great, good, we're moving on. I'm banking that. I'm sorry to say you've spoken already, so I'm moving on. Right, next subject. Anything else under open forum?
There's only one more.
Just a really quick one. Just I fully support everything that's written in here. I actually call upon the council to think that this is such an important thing. This is a school that hundreds and hundreds, thousands of children are going to pass through for decades. And if we've got an opportunity to build something now that impacts the lives of our children for the future, we should stop that project now, put it on hold, and build it in a better place as a matter of urgency, where there's not the same terrible levels of pollution that we see there currently. So I fully support that, and I call on Stephen Albright today to think again and read the detail of the reports, that all the other sites have been mentioned across the borough, and despite the council saying they are not valid sites, when you do read the small print of those reports, they all say the same thing. Those sites are valid, they're good for schools, if not 1,200 pupils, certainly for 800 to 900 pupils, they're great sites. This is the opportunity. The council's not listening, the council needs to think again to address it and find a better site for this school.
Okay, so we've run over the time for the open forum. Is there anybody else who wants to say something different briefly? Yes, madam. Not on the school, though, is that right? Okay, thank you.
My name is Jane Dance. I speak on behalf of Friends of Morley Park, and I'd like to raise the issue of the continued closure of Morley Park. In September 2017, the council signed a certificate of completion of all the works that Berkeley Homes were required to do in Morley Park before transferring the freehold to the council. The works required included the eradication of Japanese knotweed. We do not understand why the certificate was signed, as the works were not complete. Berkeley Homes were obliged to complete these works before selling homes on their hospital development. So by signing the certificate, the council lost all leverage to ensure the park was transferred to them with all the works done and in a timely way. More than 1 year later, the park is still closed and owned by Berkeley Homes, who are using increasing areas of it to facilitate construction of their Woolston development site. We are told that the delay to the transfer is due to discussions on the liability for Japanese knotweed, but clearly Berkeley Homes are finding continued ownership of the park useful. The outcome of all this is that the Yersey Line High School doesn't have its playing fields, the public don't have access to the park, areas of a site of importance for nature conservation are stripped of all vegetation, and the council is at risk of incurring unnecessary costs. I propose that a motion is put to the council that the park should be transferred to the council and open as soon as possible, consistent with the planning consent, and that there is increased scrutiny and transparency of this process.
Thank you very much for that. For those of you who are regular attendants at the forum, you know that there is the mechanism for me to put on your behalf a motion to the council, which is then debated or not debated by the council. What we've done up until now, and but thank you for all you've said. I didn't know you were going to say that, but I'm glad you have. What members of the forum have been happy with up until now is that I couched the motion in terms of asking the cabinet member responsible to look into the matter and then to report back. Are you happy as a forum if that is the way that I put it this time? I do think it's the best way because, of course, if we put it in a very if we put it in a confrontational way, then it's likely to make less progress than if we put it in that way. So, as the person who suggested, are you happy if I put it that way?
I would like it done in whatever way actually achieves results. It doesn't sound very convincing to put it to the cabinet member.
Well, it's your meeting, so you or anybody else can suggest another way. So what would happen, just for those who are unfamiliar, is when I present the report of this forum to the council, as part of that process, I would move a motion, and hopefully another member here of any political party would second that motion, and then there would be the opportunity for the council to debate it, and the motion would be asking the council to agree something. So clearly we want the council to agree it, I'm assuming, as a forum. So I'm suggesting that the wording that's most likely to be agreed, and therefore most likely to get action, is where we actually ask for action rather than predetermining the end. So that would be my recommendation, but it's your meeting.
How do we know what their findings are?
So what I would ask, if we were to go with this route, is I would ask that the cabinet member reviews what has been discussed tonight, what we've heard tonight, and reports back. And either we could invite the cabinet member as part of the motion to actually attend this meeting and to share their view, to share the results of that investigation themselves. That would be what I would suggest. Or we could ask the cabinet member to write, so that at a future meeting that can be read out.
If it was a planning precondition, isn't there an enforcement issue there? And shouldn't Berkeley Homes be paying to use the land? Good luck.
Well, we can put that into it if you want. It's your meeting, so I'm happy to put any motion that you as forum members want. But yes.
I've got just a sideways point, and I don't really know the part well, but the business about the Japanese knotweed is quite interesting, because I don't know how they're going to get rid of it, but as you know, glyphosate has been found to be carcinogenic, so this obsession with trying to get rid of it, how can we have a nature reserve that's had carcinogenic weed killer put on it? So could you not take out the provision about removing the Japanese knotweed? Because
I think the subject of the Japanese knotweed is in many ways a red herring, and it's a red herring which I think that the council have been using to considerable extent. I mention it simply because the council got themselves in a very strong position where they had an obligation on Berkeley Homes, that Berkeley Homes had to eradicate it. An impossible task, but that's what the legal document said. What the council have done by signing a certificate of completion is they have lost that leverage on Berkeley Homes. Berkeley Homes no longer have that obligation, and Berkeley Homes, it appears to me, are now taking liberties. They are using parts of the park. The transfer of the park to the council has been delayed by over a year, and so the whole subject of Japanese knotweed is being, I think, used as something to disguise the fact that there is an underlying problem, that all the leverage on Berkeley Homes has been lost.
So can I ask you, bearing in mind what you've just said in terms of leverage and maybe in some cases the time has passed, can I ask you just to, and this is great, this is what a public meeting should be about, can I ask you just to spend a couple of minutes drafting what you would like to put, and then you can put it to the meeting and see if the meeting agrees, and while you're doing that, the gentleman at the back has said what you
Yeah, on Japanese knotweed, just to lay something about using chemical controls, is that there are biological controls. Search for it on the internet. There are a couple of companies which do all it. It's not cheap because it involves employing a person to come along with the relevant bugs that will only eat Japanese knotweed because it comes from Japan. They don't eat anything else in the UK, and that can mitigate some of it. The other thing you can do is cut the leaves off and burn it. You can eat stalks. It's a bit like rhubarb. That's much the same thing.
I think one more speaker, if somebody else wants to speak.
Can come back with a bit more.
Oh yes, thank you.
So this was raised at the Rains Park Forum last week, so the advantage of going to lots of forums, so hear what's said elsewhere. And Neil Milligan, who's the head of planning or development control at the council, was giving an update on this. Where it's at the moment is that the council is requiring Berkeley Homes to take out an indemnity insurance against future spread of Japanese knotweed. not we. And that's with lawyers at the moment to sign off, and then once that's signed off, we can then go to the transfer of the land.
Okay, so in view of that from Chris, thank you, Chris. Madam, would you still like to put your motion?
Well, I have a go, I don't have much time. That the council be asked to report back promptly, perhaps we put a time frame on that, something reasonable. I would have thought that 3 weeks, 2 weeks even, should be adequate, given that they must be very familiar with the process. And report back on how they propose to bring the negotiations with Berkeley Homes on the transfer of the park to the council to a rapid conclusion.
Okay. With your permission, I would suggest a month, just because unfortunately things tend to move quite slowly. So if you're happy with that, is everybody happy to give your consent to that?
Can I add one thing? To bring the negotiations to a prompt conclusion and open the park consistent with the terms of the planning consent.
Okay, thank you for that. That sounds really good. Chris, have you got it? Okay, everybody happy with that?
As a council taxpayer, I would like to know if they're going to be paying anything to recognise the use of that land that they've enjoyed.
Okay, so that's
it should have been transferred back some time ago.
That's a question. So that would go into the pot tonight, and we'll come back to you with an answer to that too. Yes.
And perhaps should it be included in the motion that Berkeley Homes remove all the materials, vehicles, etc. that they're provisionally using?
Well, again, the suggestion from the front is should it be included that Berkeley Homes are required to remove vehicles, etc. on the site at the moment. My recommendation is to keep this realistic and in the hope that council officers engage positively, which I'm sure they will, and the cabinet member engages positively, which I'm sure they will. My recommendation would be not to add that bit, but how does the meeting feel? Is everybody happy? I will come to you in a moment. So is everybody happy with the motion as drafted? Yeah. Okay, well let's run with that. Last comment from you, sir, at the back, and then we'll move on.
Yes, just to emphasise, Chairman, the situation with regard to Morley Park is quite absurd. I don't know whether people are aware, but a year ago, Claire Baldwin attended an open day there, whereupon the park was promptly reclosed. Just because the bill of Japanese not being however ferocious that animal is, and however much it bites you, is a ridiculous excuse for not having the park open more than a year ago. And I really recommend that whoever is going to do it puts a suitable influence under Chancellor Draper or whoever the cabinet member and get him or her get a move on.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask potentially a dangerous question which I might regret. Given we're now running well over time, is there anybody else who, like the three speakers we've had so far, who's actually spent a lot of time preparing so they can say something? Good, you had your chance. Okay, we'll move on. So thank you, everybody. So we're moving on now. We've got Fiona Gaylor from the CCG. You're very welcome, Fiona, and you're going to talk to us about the Merton Health and Care Plan. So thank you very much, and you're very welcome.
Thank you for having me. Can everybody at the back hear me? No. I need to shout a bit louder.
Yes.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. And can everybody see this at the front? I have got some printed copies which I'll leave on the side in case you want to look at it afterwards. Okay? So, as we've just been described, I'm here from Merton CCG to talk about the health and care plan and commissioning intentions. My name, as it said, is Fiona, and I'm the Head of Patient and Public Engagement and Equality for Merton CCG. So my job basically is to listen to people and to make sure that they have that those are fed into decision makers. So minutes, but then I mostly want to hear from you, and I hope you won't rule that I take that back and that other decision makers act on your feedback. We are responsible for we know 24 GP hospitals, dentists, mental health providers, integration, and community groups, including Health Watch, who some of you may or may not know. They are the consumer champion for health and social care, making sure, like me, that people have the opportunity to input into health and care plans. And our aims are around three main areas. So improving health and well-being for the whole population, reducing health inequalities, which is a massive challenge, given some of the topics that you've been talking about earlier on. Some of those bridge health inequalities as well, and making sure everyone has equal access to healthcare services. So why am I here today? So we are in the NHS obviously always working to continuously improve the services that are provided to you, the public. And we can only do that if we come out and talk to you and understand what's working, what isn't working, and actually learning from that feedback and changing services to meet what people need. So we have been coming along to meetings like this, smaller meetings, even bigger meetings, and listening to what people have said. And we're going to be doing that until November to help inform plans for next year. We do this every year, and this is called commissioning intentions. So it basically is about what we intend to do next year, what we intend to focus on next year, and getting your feedback helps us know what to prioritise for next year. So some of our challenges, I'm sure you could probably list all of these off for me. You hear about the NHS challenges in the press daily. People have longer to wait than they expect. We're facing unprecedented financial challenges. The quality of some of our services are variable depending on where you live. You might have a very different experience, even if it's just a couple of miles down the road. Not all of our buildings are in the best condition, and we need to invest money to make them better. Having good access to psychological therapies is a real challenge, and we know that, especially in Merton. And the expected growth in our population puts additional pressure on the NHS. We have to pay more money to keep people well for longer, so that is a challenge for us. And there's obviously always an increasing demand for new treatments and therapies. Things come up all the time that are new therapies that the NHS has to think about whether it can afford to fund it or not, and rationalise that, which is always a challenge. So we have an open mind, but not an empty mind. So there are some things that we are thinking about for next year as priorities, and these are really based on information that we have about the health needs of the population. The Council produces a lovely document called the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment. I would highly recommend it if you have trouble sleeping. It's beautiful, it's data rich, it gives a lovely picture of the health of people in the area and what some of the challenges are, and that's where we get a lot of our information about people in Merton. So there are three main areas that we're looking at in terms of priorities. So start well for young people. Having a good start in life is obviously very important for healthcare, and under that we have integrated support for children and families and support with emotional wellbeing and mental health. The second category is around live well, so for working age people it's thinking about well-being and long-term conditions, as well as mental health and well-being, which we know is a challenge. And then age well, so as you get older, it's thinking about how we can support people with complex health and care needs. So do you have long-term conditions? Are there kind of different issues going on for you in your life as you get older that mean you can't get out and about and you need a bit more support? So, as I said, this conversation here builds on a lot of work that we've already done, and for those of you who have got the presentation, I'll let you read that for yourselves, but there's a bit of information there about what people have already told us about what they want from healthcare and what their priorities are. So, I've got two quite simple questions there, but I would propose to add a third, which is what you think about the priorities that I just talked through. There we go. So these are the things that we're thinking about focusing on for next year. That doesn't represent every single thing we will do, obviously, but these are the ones that we think we need to pay particular attention to next year. So I would invite you to give me some comments about whether you think those are the right things, whether you think we're way off track and we should be focusing on something else. And whilst you do that, I'm going to grab my notepad and make a note, so I don't want you to feel like I'm not listening to you, because I want to capture what you're saying. Would it? Lovely.
I feel really strongly about this. I think it's really crucial that it's easier for people to get GP appointments. It is almost impossible. I was worried about a health issue. I went on the online system about 3 times. There were never any appointments there. We tried phoning. The Nelson Medical Practice, it's a lovely building, it's a great opportunity, but you just cannot get appointments. And I think if people... I'm an educated person, I'm not stupid. I almost gave up. I almost thought, you know what, I just can't be bothered anymore. And I think that's quite sad, and it's also dangerous, because if you catch things early, they're probably going to be cheaper to treat. So it's in everybody's interest to get people through the door when they need to see a GP. Absolutely. And it's almost impossible. That, for me, that has to be the priority.
Yes. May I just ask 2 questions? Are you responsible for appointing the agency who deal with continuing health care?
So our organisation is yes, but not me personally. So if you have a question about it, what I can do is make a note of it and then come back to you.
I'd like to come back to you on it, because I do have to raise some very, very serious concerns about the changeover and the impact it's had, in particular within my own family. Setting that aside, the other issue I said is I haven't noticed anything there about how we would work with drug and alcohol needs with the borough. And have you looked at the alcohol profiles of the UK and done taken the data that Public Health England produce on that?
So I can't answer that question,
okay.
But
we can talk later.
I'd just like to follow up that question, because we're coming up to winter and there will be people sleeping on the streets of the Broad. And I'm pleased that you've got mental health and well-being, but the churches, my wife runs one of the church groups that put up the homeless over Christmas, and it's a scandal. And if you go to the Salvation Army in Kingston Road on Wednesday and Friday, we've got loads of homeless people from across the borough being fed for free. And these people are mental health, drug, alcohol problems. We had one of the 4 chaps died outside Morrison's last winter. So there's many things for people who are reasonably healthy, but my heart goes out, and I'd really like, because these people tell us they can't register if they're homeless, and they're the most vulnerable mentally alcohol. So I'd like that to be looked at.
Yeah, so all I would say on that in terms of registering, the CCG has a responsibility to offer primary care to homeless people. Yes, it is a challenge with registry, but there are things in place for homeless people to get access to primary care. It might be that they don't know about it, so there's something in there about raising awareness of that service.
Will you tell the YMCA, because they coordinate for the homeless people at Christmas?
Yeah, that's a good point, thank you.
Just at the very back. Yes, yes. Thank you.
I think if you look around, you can see that the vast majority of people here are part of the grey population. And I've been absolutely appalled since moving to the borough at the lack of coordinated care, especially in Nelson Medical Centre.
Which medical centre?
Nelson.
Nelson, yeah.
I mean, like this lady said, it's a practice, there are lots of facilities there, but there's no coordination for people. There's no special doctors or GPs who can deal with ageing, and this is such an important issue now. People who are aging have needs and problems, just like children do, just like young families do, but there's no special service for them. It's almost as if they're being written off. And I really urge you to just across the borough, not just there, but to have some sort of coordinated policy that will. I've been there so many times and seen so many different doctors, and I don't think they're really that bothered about problems of aging. That's something I think you want to keep people in their homes, you want to keep people fit and healthy, so do something about it in a coordinated way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Thank you.
Any other non-councillors first? And then...
There was another question. I think there was another question over here somewhere.
Oh, but he's a councillor.
No, okay. All right.
So non-councillors first.
I just have one question. You know the idea of a green gym?
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of opportunities. Merton, with the green spaces management and stuff, there's some wonderful opportunities starting next year with Future Merton and Future Wimbledon Town. And we need a green gym organized, and I would assume that you guys would be the people to be sort of the central point. But there are RHS volunteers in Wimbledon, there are community groups who'd love to put, the Green Coffee, for example, who would bring people to help do work outdoor space, camaraderie, exercise, fresh air, spark of life,
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's where the kind of partnership with the council and with voluntary and community organisations is really important to achieve that.
So on that middle one, and age well, you could do a huge amount very quickly, I think.
Okay, that's a really good idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other yes?
Regarding that development, it's outsourced to a company house. You get a leaflet in the post and you put them out in the streets on the post, which is not good for trying to encourage people to not smoking and using any one-to-one that you need to support. They're very good, they give lots of information, but the people who need it can't assimilate it over the phone.
So the public health stuff. Yeah. So public health is managed by the council, but my colleagues here. But I can take that back and pass that on. That in fact that it's not accessible.
Okay. Yes.
On your bit about your buildings. Is it worth you? I've got a bit about your buildings. And obviously, I understand there's a problem with funding of the NHS from central government and other bits and what you can do elsewhere. But one would have thought with the business regulation that you could speak to the development parts of the council and their ideas of how they wish to change the bit around the area of eviction and amongst other places about how you can integrate things which are obviously not a risk for other people, but where housing associations and I can effectively dig the foundations and stick in the roof on. If you haven't got to worry about that and your service is within the middle of it, is this something which you should be exploring? Have you been exploring? And is Merton Council happy for you to explore it with you?
So I don't think I can answer some of that. However, I think our estates team would be very, very open to that and working with the council on it. I can't vouch for whether they have had conversations about it. I would assume they probably have. But I think it's definitely a good point that I can talk to colleagues about and we can feedback on.
And just to remind everybody, I know I say this a lot, but it's important. So these comments that people are making, and particularly ideas that are given, like both the last two speakers, Chris is capturing those. Part of what he does is he sends those comments to the relevant officers. So that's the whole point. Your views are being fed into the process. And the reason I begin the evening by asking councillors to identify themselves is, of course, you've now got your representatives here as well, and will also, I hope, feed into the process.
Sorry, what I was going to say, which is on the very end side, is what we're going to do with this. So obviously Chris has been taking notes, I've been taking notes. We'll collaborate to make sure that we've captured everything. But what we're doing is going to use everything that you said, everything we've heard from all the other groups we've been to, pass that on to the people.
So these comments that people are making.
And then we're going to develop a report that we will share via Chris with anybody that wants to see it. It will go on our website so you can see what this group and what everybody else has said and then what we've actually done about it, or explaining why we can't do things with it, because that's always frustrating, I find, not finding out what happens. So we're committing to do that for you and everybody else that's responded as part of this.
Okay, Fiona, thank you. That's great. Anthony?
Building on Peter's point, I'm going to ask if there's been any measurement of the loss of the walk-in centre at the Wilson, so you didn't have to register for a GP to get health services. And I know you now have the hubs where you can ring up and get out-of-hours GP appointments, but you do have to be registered. So is there any measurement of that? And secondly, I wanted to very quickly add one positive for Nelson. As the father of a nearly 3-year-old, it's always very easy and very quick to get an appointment for him, which is great for him, but maybe less so for other people.
So to respond to your point about kind of measurement of the loss of the Nelson and presumably the impact on surrounding services if people are going there, the primary care team will have done something about that. Obviously I don't have that data here, but we can respond to that and give a bit of feedback. I used to work in South East London, and I know that they closed with a number of their walk-in centres, and anecdotal evidence from South East London was that They didn't really see an increase in A&E attendances, but they did see more people using the GP hubs. So that's anecdotal evidence from other areas, but we can find out specifically about the nursing.
Okay, anybody who hasn't yet spoken? Okay, last contribution.
I just want to ask you a question. Are you, going to your commission, does this involve also looking at what you've already done and assessing whether you should continue it, or are you just looking to move ahead with new things, or are you evaluating what you've already done?
Yeah, so it's both things. It is looking at what's already being done and whether that's good and achieving what it should be achieving. But also it is about looking forward and kind of think, and in a way the commissioning bit is reviewing what's happening and therefore reprioritising what we need to focus on. So it's both things, absolutely.
Are you doing the outsourcing of physiotherapy to a third-party for-profit organisation? Because I've used that quite extensively, and everyone I've met who used it has been absolutely appalled by the service they had from this outsourced company. I have actually made complaints to Nelson about it. But I am quite happy to email you privately about my experience, and every single person that I've spoken to there has been dissatisfied. And this company is making money out of our taxes and money from Merton. And I think it's very important that outsourced organisations are actually monitored and held to certain standards. And I would really like to contribute to any review that you're doing about that company.
So I think what I'll do is, before I leave, I'll kind of stand at the back for 5 minutes, and I think there are a couple of you that wanted to exchange emails, so if we do that before I leave, then I can follow up afterwards, if that's all right.
Okay. Fiona, thanks so much. Thanks for coming to see us, and thanks for saying that you'll make sure everything's fed back properly. So thank you very much. So the next item is the annual report by the leader of the council. So this covers two areas. It's firstly an opportunity for the leader for Stephen to tell us what is in his inbox and the major issues coming across his desk, and to give us a flavour of what he's working on. And then it's secondly an opportunity obviously for you to ask questions and to give your ideas to him and raise your concerns. So,
thank you, James, and thank you for inviting me. So I've done this is the second of the community forums. So the first one was about 10 days ago at Grace Park. And what I intend to do is to go through a Merton-wide number of issues, not necessarily a Wimbledon-centric, so that you can get a picture of what's happening throughout the borough, the pressures on the borough, like many other London boroughs, including national boroughs, and also to go through some of the hope that hopefully we're providing in these times of austerity, some of the issues we're looking at, that are pinching our finances, make sure we don't go down the route of Northampton Council, which is going bust or has gone bust, and come out with a vision for the borough that is about hope and about something sticking out of the ground that is useful and good for people to use, to look at, and as a nice contribution to the place. So thank you for inviting me, and delighted to be here. Now, as with any council leader throughout the country, what they would say to you is these are very, very tough times financially for all local authorities. So in the next 3 to 4 years, we as a borough have to find around £19 million. So we will find that because we as a borough are a legal borough. We will have a balanced budget each year, each March, and we will be legal and we will run the council. We will not, like Northampton, allow a government minister to come and run this borough for us, because we're a business-like borough. We will get through these very, very difficult times. Those difficult times are mainly because of two pressures. One on adult social care, huge pressure on adult social care throughout all boroughs, including this one in the London Borough of Merton, and pressures on children's services as well. Just two examples. In Cannon Hill Ward, where I live, there's a 40% increase in people living over 85 years of age, and that's what we want. We want for people to live longer, to live better lives, and longer, into their 80s, into their 90s. But that does have ramifications for adult social care budgets for the London Borough of Merton. And we're determined to see what we can do, hopefully with help from the government, to satisfy our statutory duty to the most vulnerable, to the elderly in this borough, and we will do that come what may. Children's services, another area where I don't know if many of you know it, but the borough is a corporate parent. The borough acts as a parent to children whose parents don't want them, don't need them, can't look after them, and we have about 135 of those. And children's services is the only area that is inspected by Ofsted in a very, very hard and intriguing manner, but also very, very testing manner. So without notice, inspectors come from Ofsted to all boroughs that have a children's service and pore over everything that we do with regard to children's safeguarding, fostering, adoption. Again, I'm talking about the most vulnerable children in this borough, and they pore over that and then they make an assessment. And this borough, this London Borough of Merton, is outstanding in a number of areas for children's services. In leadership, that's the political leadership in working with management. In safeguarding, one of the most important areas, the children in this borough are safe tonight, as I speak. In adoption and in fostering, one of the two services that are applauded and lauded by other local authorities. Wandsworth, with half its council tax, was inspected by Ofsted. Children's services inadequate. I will not have that here in the London Borough of Merton. We will look after the most vulnerable, the elderly and the youngsters. We will do that, and that will be a pressure point on us, which means that those budgets, adult social care and children's services, will be looked after. And I'm pleased that we found £9 million of growth money, which is very, very unusual for our children, for our adult social care, and £1 million for children's services. Obviously, those pressures are added to by the government with a 63% cut in our budget over the last few years. So if your household budget was cut by 63%, you would have some very, very difficult decisions to make. If you have a 3-bedroom house, you may have to close down one of the bedrooms. If you have an extension, you may have to close that extension down. If you have 2 showers, you may have to use just the 1 shower. If you have a takeaway 5-6 times a night, you may just have to have 2 nights, and so it goes on. And that's what local authorities have to do if a chunk of their money all of a sudden is cut back. So 63% cut in our government support. But we don't just sit back and moan. We take action to make sure that we save money in certain areas in an entrepreneurial and in an innovative way. So, as we all know, lawyers are very expensive. We all know that. And so the London Borough of Merton is the lead borough in setting up the South London Legal Partnership. 5 boroughs, 1 legal service. The South London Legal Partnership, led by the London Borough of Merton. 80 lawyers based in Morden, doing the law for 4 other boroughs, including Merton, including Wandsworth. Wandsworth increasingly is coming to us to run services for them. The trailblazing borough, the flagship borough of Margaret Thatcher, comes to the London Borough of Merton for us to run some of its services. And I'm very, very, very proud of that. Regulatory services, so when you go into the pub, you expect the publican to give you a good measure, weights and measures. You go to a restaurant, you expect the food to be safe, to be nutritious, and to be delicious but safe. And licensing, hours of work, trading standards, counterfeit goods, regulatory service, run by Merton, shared service, Richmond, Wandsworth and Merton. And those shared services save money for those boroughs, led by the London Borough of Merton, so that we don't have to make as drastic cuts as we would have to children's services and to adult social care. In a borough that is affluent in Wimbledon, you catch a 200 bus from the village, 4 miles, 20 minutes down to Mitcham. Longevity, life expectancy difference between female in the village, female in Mitcham, 13 years. 13 years. That is what we're here to do, to close that gap, to bridge that gap. If we have any extra money in the London Borough of Merton, we will allocate that to make sure that it closes that gap wherever possible. We also try to get income generation. So the Civic Centre, 3 floors of that Civic Centre, Crown House in Morden, by the tube station, 1960s building, no change whatsoever, no carpets in the lifts, all that. We just get on with it. We're not asking for a new conference centre, we're not asking for a new town hall. It's functional, it works for us, we will use it, but we're sweating it. 3 floors, let out for income for the borough. And when you see some lights on, and a lot of people come up and say, Stephen, those lights are on all night, what is going on there? It's a waste of money. I said, it's not a waste of money. It's the CCTV bank, whole bank of CCTV cameras, working with the police to identify any issues that are coming around both day and time. And I know a number of you, this is Cannon Hill Ward or Lower Morden, were a bit concerned about the festival that we put in place in Morden Park to use the park to raise funds. We raised £80,000 by having a 2-day festival that brought 20,000 youngsters into Morden so they could see Morden. Yes, they didn't all behave themselves. Yes, they did things they shouldn't have done. Yes, some of that drill music was over the top. We're learning all the time. We need to liaise more and more with the residents. But I will not have a park just sitting there without being used. So we will continue to look at our parks to see if we can have any events there. So in terms of libraries, this used to be the old reference library. I remember my reference library in Fulham. Lovely smell, Britannica, Encyclopedia and so on. This is fully booked to the 25th of November. It is fully booked, it is chock-a-block. Again, income coming in to the local authority, the sweating of assets. Collier's with brand new library. Please name me a local authority that's opened a brand new dementia-friendly library, opened by Brian Moore, the Roger, not long ago, and came second in the National Library Awards to Liverpool, where I've just come back from the Labour Party conference, a great city. West Barnes, the Cabinet has agreed a replenishment, a brand new library, whatever. Obviously, we need to wait for Crossrail 2 to see what's happening there. But West Barnes is next in line to get a brand new library. But Crossrail 2 is critical. To that. Schools, 23 primary schools expanded in the teeth of opposition sometimes by some people, creating 4,400 long ago, and came second in the National Library Awards to Liverpool, where I've just come back from the Labour Party conference, a great city. West Barnes, the Cabinet has agreed a replenishment, a brand new library, whatever. Obviously, we need to wait for Crossrail 2 to see what's happening there. But West Barnes to get a brand new library, but Crossrail 2 is critical. To that. Schools, 23 primary schools expanded in the teeth of opposition sometimes by some people, creating 4,400 extra primary school places. We could have built a new school in the village or in Wimbledon Park or somewhere else, but we expanded great schools, outstanding schools, well led by their head teachers, and created 4,400 primary schools, because that is a statutory duty. I cannot, as a leader, not provide enough school places. I must, and most of those are first preference, over 80% for our parents. And less parents are sending their children out of borough. It's a shame. We want our children to come in borough, to the schools in borough. Outstanding schools, Ursula, Rickards, outstanding schools, outstanding primary schools. And that's what we want. And the Department for Education and government ministers, I'm the Labour leader here, but I get letters from Conservative education ministers saying on what you do in education, because this borough is #1 in the country, according to the Department for Education, for progress in children, Key Stage 2 to Key Stage 4, 11 years old to 16. Now, if they go to a private school or a grammar school, they're clever. They've been selected. And they're going to come out clever. And I'm not denying those teachers are doing well. They keep a consistency. But as an educationalist, one that believes in state education, isn't it great that without selection, children join our schools at grade 11, and this borough is tops in the country for improving them all abilities by the time they get to the age of 16 and they do their GCSEs. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of money by our schools improvement team. Great credit to head teachers, to teachers, to parents, to governors, and to the children. Not taking anything away. But let's agree that it is a partnership. And we've had a brand new head teacher recently joined us. He said, Stephen, I've been a head teacher in other boroughs, and the support I get from this London Borough of Merton is unbelievable in terms of running my school. And that is a lot of money that goes to those people. Regeneration, redevelopment, things that stick out of the ground. I used to work at the Federation of Small Businesses. Construction industry is hugely important to this country. And when I'm driving behind the skid, I'm not frustrated. I'm not angry. I know there's work there. I know something is happening. Something is being built. And that's why it's important that we as a borough have things going on. So Clarion, our housing association, 2,800 extra units, respecting all the social housing that's already there, £1 billion investment in the Hyde Park, Ravensbury, and at Eastfields. Dave Hill, has anyone heard of Dave Hill? A London commentator. He's recently retired from The Guardian. He knows anything about London, the London boroughs. Dave Hill. He wrote in Harrogate about regeneration, consulting, or not consulting with residents. He said the London Borough of Merton needs 3 regenerations. Those towers that you see on the Hyde Park, they're going to be replaced by... Yes, the previous administration, I've got to give them credit as well, started the More Modern project. 2008, we had the global financial crisis. Not much interest, but now there is interest. So, Morden Town Centre, the start of the line, not the end of the line, the start of the line. By 2021, we will start to renovate, replenish, have a better shopping offer for residents, have a public rail space outside the tube station, move the buses a bit further along, perhaps build a depot for the buses so that there is some kind of shopping experience in Morden. AFC Wimbledon, in the teeth of opposition from Boris Johnson. Do you remember Boris Johnson? He was the Mayor of London, and he objected to a fan-based club coming back built. And he's built Morden Leisure Centre, 25 metres, 6 lanes, diving pool, CAF facility, disability facilities, and it goes on and on. In a park, 100-station fitness gym, looking out onto a lovely superlative park. The old one is still running. When the new one opens, the old one closes and returns to green space. So not a blade of grass will be lost by having a brand new swimming pool in a park. I think we spoke about the Wilsons, and that should be coming to fruition in 2022. Not only as a health centre, but also as a centre for issues like employment, getting people into work as well. Collier's Wood, you have the brand new Town and Root Tower. Brown and Root Tower, much looking a bit better. Mitcham, rediscovered Mitcham, we've planted £7 million into there. And I know there'll be a discussion on Wimbledon and so on. On Crossrail 2, all the parties are agreed. We do regularly sit down on all party issues, and all the parties, just like they signed up to the return of AFC Wimbledon to the borough, have said yes to Crossrail 2, but not at any cost to Wimbledon Town Centre. And that is in the annals of the TFL. They dare not change that. So if we do get Crossrail 2, it won't mean the destruction of Centre Court. Just finally on recycling, isn't it awful when you see these pictures of our rubbish being put into the earth? It's called landfill. It costs us money. It is a disgusting approach and way of getting rid of our waste. landfill, and it's got to stop. We've got to increase the recycling in this borough. So as you all know, from the 1st of October, there's a new waste collection service that will save us this year £1.6 million and £2 million thereafter by moving to a wheelie bin-based service. And we hope that we will increase our recycling from 37% to 45%. Sutton's has shot up to 50% since they took up the wheel bin service. Hopefully cleaner streets, and we'll also be collecting clothes, batteries and shoes if you want. And yes, Viola have not covered themselves in glory, and yes, I am sorry for their performance. We have deducted from the contract.
How much?
10% of the annual contract.
And how much is that?
That is a lot of money, hundreds
How
of thousands.
much?
I can get that to you. I can get it, but it's hundreds of thousands of pounds. And 17 to 18 was when we deducted that, and we're quite happy to deduct again. Now, finally, we do rely on a lot of volunteers here in East London Borough of Merton. And the Cabinet, a couple of weeks ago, proposed a paper to invest around £1 million in our voluntary sector, because there are people out there who need advice and need help. We can't afford lawyers. So our voluntary budget goes from strength to strength. Wimbledon Guild get £43,000. The Citizens Advice Bureau, where people who have no access to legal advice, where the legal aid system has been decimated, we're funding that to the tune of £340,000. The South West London Law Centre, £56,000. Merton Centre for Independent Living, £80,000. Age UK, £73,000. And we will continue to invest in the voluntary sector so people get the advice when they need it. I'm sure there'll be a question on Harris. I can cover it now, but I'm sure there will be a question. But let me cover it now. So you heard me say that we have a duty to make sure there are adequate school places for our primary school children. And we expanded 23 primary schools, creating 4,400 extra places for our children. They grow to be the age of 11. They need school places. So we have a secondary school strategy that means we need a brand new school in the London Borough of Merton. When you get a brand new school, the law dictates it has to be a free-stroke academy. So we have a deal with Harris, who have just announced through Ofsted that their school in Morden, has anyone heard of Garth Road School? Bishop School. Can anyone tell me whether they were good schools? Whether they were outstanding schools? Whether they were looking after the children? Whether the children were coming out with good standards? No. It is an outstanding school. I'm interested in results. I'm interested in how children prosper. And they've only got one chance, and it's in those 4 years or 5 years or 7 years at a good school. This council is a traditional local authority education state school system, but there are academy schools here, and they do us proud. And so we put together a proposal to the Department for Education. And they've agreed that proposal. So the Harris Federation, the Department for Education, the Department for Skills and Funding, they're the ones, and they've agreed that proposal. So the Harris Federation, the Department for Education, the Department for Skills and Funding, they're the ones that are putting in the planning permission in South Wimbledon, in the Hyde Park, for a brand new school that has already started in an educational establishment, the former Adult Education College in Watley Avenue in Cannon Hill, that is now being run excellently by Merton College, because the funding for that was cutting, and we would have had to have cut further education in mid-term. I didn't want to do that. 128 children oversubscribed. Ask those parents Next year, another 128 children are going to the Harris Wimbledon. And in September 2020, the vision is that there should be a brand new secondary school at the Hyde Park. And if you have any concerns, if you want to put your views forward, all buildings that need planning permission are subject to the Planning Applications Committee. That is a quasi-judicially run committee that runs on the basis of information from experts, whether it's the Department for Education, who builds schools, whether it's the Environment Department or flooding, as it was with regard to FC Wimbledon, and there will be an air quality discussion at that planning meeting. And there will be conditions applied on a raft of issues so that we get the school right. But I want you to know that the parents are very much looking forward to that school opening at the Hyde Park. And if you look at any school that's been built in central London, where there isn't a blade of grass, it's always very, very difficult in terms of space and in terms of play area. But I do believe that it's all subject to planning, and that's where we all put our concerns in. I'm confident that that planning committee will take the right decision based on the evidence that they're going to be given by yourselves if you put in your objections or your support, by the parents, by the head teacher next door, by the air quality consultant, by all those experts that are going in. These are very, very difficult decisions where to put things, but at the end of the day, it's important that we as a local authority satisfy our statutory duty for school places, but it is all subject to that planning applications committee. Thank you.
Okay, Stephen, thank you very much. So we have 45 minutes left now in total. Unfortunately, because the building needs to be locked up, we're not allowed to run over. We have, as you know, another very important item tonight, which is Paul McGarry is here to talk to us about the Wimbledon Town Centre plan. Unfortunately, however short we make the agendas, we always seem to have time issues. But obviously, Stephen has raised a lot of important points in his address to us. So I'm keen to take as many comments and questions as possible, but could I just ask you to keep them as absolutely as quick as you can, and answers to be really quick too, so we can hear as many people as possible. Yes, sir. Really quick though, please.
At a meeting which you were at, and at Holden, you said that in respect of the former industrial building over on the Willow Lane trading estate, which is currently used as residential accommodation, arguably in a substandard manner, that you were disinclined to apply compulsory purchase on that because you didn't want to effectively disenfranchise the proprietor's interest in that land. That basically it's in building to do it live and private with everything else. Even if that might actually improve the conditions of people who happen to be resident in our borough. Can I ask, either have you reconsidered that decision, or if you're willing to stick with it, can I have your confirmation that you're also not reconsidering the use of compulsory purchase to disenfranchise other people of their proprietary interest in land which they're currently enjoying within the
Okay, good, thank you. Thank you. Quick answer, please.
I need to talk to you. Are you referring to the warehouse or factory in the Willows that is now housing?
Yeah, I'm
okay, can you talk at the end of the meeting? Right, next.
I'd like an answer in front of you. Are you going to think about using compulsory purchase to make it better for those people there? If you're not, then are you going to say, from what you said, you don't like London Council using compulsory purchase powers to disenfranchise owners of land or owners of residential property? I want to see that is that actually London Council policy.
Compulsory purchase orders are looked at on an individual case-by-case, depending on its merits. There's no blanket policy on any local authority as to whether they go for compulsory purchase orders or not. So I just need to sit down with you and discuss which one we're talking about.
Okay, good. Next question. Comment? Yes, Matt. Yep.
I have a question. Stephen, you have a lot of confidence in your planning applications committee. I wonder how many people in this room or in this borough have that amount of confidence in your planning application committee, given the monstrosities you are currently building in this borough, and given the number of reports that are produced that are factually incorrect, and that the residents of this borough have to put up with officers and councillors lying during those planning committees and scrutiny committees, which your legal compliance officer refuses to investigate.
But that's why we're here tonight, to hear about the future. So
Yeah.
can we move on to the future, please? And see what's
Well, excuse me, I'm asking a question.
Okay, so one speaker at a time. So what is your question? Can you ask your question?
No,
ladies and gentlemen, we'll have one speaker at a time. Sir, will you please ask your question, or we'll have to move on? Ask
I know, he doesn't have to ask it again. I know what the question is. I do not recognise the description that you give of the Planning Applications Committee and the processes that are legally run in this borough. If there was anything illegal or circumspect, you can go to the local government ombudsman, you can take us to the High Court, you can take us to the House of Lords, you can do whatever you like, but no one has yet. So it's your option. We run a good council. The Planning Applications Committee has discretion. They are legally elected councillors of this borough. They are trained in how to receive information from the officers. You are impugning the officers of this local authority. We are a local authority that does everything by the law. We have internal audit, we have external audit, we have judicial reviews that we beat left, right, and centre. We have the Heritage Society coming in saying everything's fine. We have everyone coming in questioning on the basis of, quite rightly, you or others calling them in, and we win hands down every time. Thank you.
Okay, good. Next question, another question? Yes, madam.
Sorry.
Yes?
Sorry, I just wanted to say that the experience, let's not be hostile about this. You have planning officers who are overworked. The numbers have been reduced. Enforcement officers have been cut down. There are vacancies. People are very concerned that hard-working planning officers who are qualified, they're experienced people, are being put under too much pressure without the support they need in order to deliver the quality service that you aspire to. So I don't think the sort of yarding, toing and froing is a helpful way forward. If we want to aspire to a future Wimbledon and a future Merton that we can be proud of, we need a quality planning service to deliver it. And I would like to suggest that that is made a priority and not an afterthought.
Thank you for that. You are right. There is pressure on planning and on enforcement. We have to decide what our priorities are. Are the priorities the extension in the village, or the basement application in the village, or the fact that a neighbour, quite rightly, is concerned that the party wall agreement is actually collapsed and the council should step in to sort all that out. So yes, there have been decisions taken that have meant a lower priority in planning and in enforcement, so that we can look after the vulnerable and the elderly. These are difficult choices, but I do appreciate it. But even if we had a fully budgeted, up and running, well-resourced planning applications system, I think people do get, quite rightly, very, very excited about planning. What I've tried to bring here for you all is a balance for my point of view of looking at, for example, John and Jane's desire about the aesthetics of their front garden and the fact that those two wheelie bins will make it look ugly.
Okay.
And Michael's, wait, I haven't finished. And Michael, who lives in Epsom, but his mum is 90 years old and needs to come home to Cannon Hill, and we need to make sure her flat or her house is ready for her to move into. They don't see each other's plight, but we as councillors see both their plight, and we have to make a choice. And the aesthetics of your front garden, I'm afraid, have to take the following. Let me look after the elderly person first. I'll get back to you.
Short questions and short answers, please. Yes.
I want to have good faith in your planning department, and I would love it actually if you take your committee and the Democratic Services people put all the names in a hat and just plucked out the number needed for a meeting. I think that would prove that it's a truly democratic process. So that I'm just setting aside. But following, there's a very big and exciting planning application coming down the pipeline. It's rumbling bigger and more magnificently by the hour. And that is the music space on the P3 site. And I know I understand that you have given your support to that, but it seems to be a conditional support. And I just wondered if you tell this audience, which is, these are Wimbledon people, this is the Wimbledon Forum, and this is extremely important to the future of Wimbledon Town. And we see that as the crux of the regeneration of the town area. And we would like to hear your support of the music space on the P3 site. Can we have that?
Thank you.
I have exactly. So I've had various discussions with Anthony Wilkinson from the Wimbledon Choral Society with regard to their aspirations for a major concert hall behind Morrison's car park. Morrison's car park comes back to the council in 2019 and reverts back to us. So we're in discussions with various developers in that. So I have done a series of letters that Anthony can use as he tries, and hopefully succeeds, in raising millions of pounds. So what I'm looking for is deliverability, that they can raise the £100 million, and sustainability. The council will sit back and watch this superlative vision take root. But it is all subject to the Planning Applications Committee.
Okay, thank you. I want to make a suggestion that, as I always said to your meeting, there's half an hour left. The future of the Wimbledon Town Centre and the Wimbledon Plan, I think, is absolutely critical, and we're already down to half an hour. Stephen has his email address on the council website. I think there's even a telephone number on the council website. So it is your meeting. If someone puts up their hand, I will take you. And he's also saying he'll stay behind. So can we move on? Is everybody happy to move on?
I'd just like to say, brought up about the constable. I've actually commissioned probably the greatest architect in the world, Frank Gehry. And I know that a big burden on the council is money. Now, Frank Gehry's famous Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao is estimated to have brought in €4 billion to that city. So I would like that to be taken into consideration, that this could actually give Wimbledon an extraordinary pulling power and a lot of money coming into it. So if you're after money in the future, you should really take this proposal very seriously.
I'll take 10%.
Has said that he will stay behind afterwards, so please feel free to talk to him then. And his email address is on the council website, and there's a telephone number for him on the council website too. Stephen, thank you for coming along. Paul, over to you. So Paul McGarry, for those of you who don't know, is head of Future Merton, I think, and the regular visitor here. So Paul, thanks very much for joining us this evening, and over to you.
Thank you, and good evening. Hopefully you can hear me okay. You can't come forward because the louder I talk, the more Scottish I get, which probably isn't great for the video. But interesting discussion there just about the planning service, because there is a question of how the council deals with applications, and actually how you as a community help shape the town centre and how we work with you. I should say I manage Future Merton. It's a magical team in the council with an equally magical name. And what we do is we set the agenda for all the planning policies and future development of the borough. There are two planning teams in the council. One deals with applications, as you just said, day in, day out, very hard. My team deals with strategy and policy. And we've been working with you as a community for quite a while on the master plan. Lo and behold, we now have one. We're going to launch it on Monday. But I'll give you an introduction to it tonight. I've actually just been to design your panel tonight. Talked about the master plan for an hour. and that wasn't long enough. So I'm not going to do it justice tonight, but I'm happy to, if you have any resting meetings, I'm happy to convene my team to come and attend for the next 2 months. So just tonight, what we'll do is give you a bit of feedback on the master plan status. It's not a fantasy planning manual for everything, it's about a practical document, and I'll explain why. I'll talk about the master planning process, because we're actually at the end of it, and it's easy to forget all the hard work we've done already to help us get here. And it's about a strategy for growing an already successful town centre. London's growing to 10 million people. The economy's still booming, population's there, places do have to evolve and change. And we can't just bury our head in the sand over that. But what I hope this plan does is it shows a sensible and measured way of managing that change. And of course, Crossrail 2 was mentioned tonight, and that'll be a huge factor. I'll talk about then the ongoing engagement that's about to come. I'm also going to commend the author of that cartoon, because they're in the audience tonight. This, I think, exemplifies what planning the future of Wimbledon Town Centre means. There are lots of different discussions about different plans. There's lots of really interesting groups, all trying to do their own thing, and that's good. There is an ongoing conversation about the future of planning, and it isn't just left to the council. So I think that's a really encouraging step. Just so you know, there is potentially a neighbourhood plan being considered for Wimbledon. My team are assisting that community group and how they might bring that forward. And I don't think that clashes with the master plan, which I'm about to talk about. They can sit side by side. So, the diagram on the left to you. This is where the master plan for Wimbledon will sit in terms of the planning hierarchy. And the reason that sounds very boring and techy is because this is what Planning Applications Committee and the Development Control Team use to assess applications. And some of the criticism we've had in the last couple of years has been it's all about having written planning policies, but what does it mean? What does it look like? When Planning Applications Committee see planning applications randomly, it's quite hard to see how do they look like all sitting next to each other. It feels as if we've got all the bits of the jigsaw, but we don't.
I really haven't heard of it.
You come down in front of the conspiracy here. So when it comes to planning, it feels as if we've got all the bits of the jigsaw, we don't have the picture on the front of the box. This master plan creates it with a lot of community input, helps us get there. Up the top is all the big national planning policies. We can't change that, we can't change any of that. So that is the national planning framework, the Mayor's London plan, and all the targets that go with it.
Sorry, keep going. Keep going, thank you.
We have to fit within the framework, it's just not, it has to fit into a legal framework, so it sounds a bit techy, but that's what it is. We are currently in the process of reviewing the local plan anyway, so any new policies which we decide will have to be the local plan. What the future of the master plan is, it's supplementary to a couple of their existing policies. Principally, Wimbledon Town Centre policy, the tall buildings policy, and design policy. So that's really what we're focusing on. After that, it then informs Merton's usual planning system. But the team and I had quite a lot of fun actually digging into the history of Wimbledon. The document has all that in, so you can see online shortly. Wimbledon's got a lot of history of development. Unlike other major towns like Guildford, Croydon, and Kingston, they were already established towns, and the railways bypassed the town centre. What we actually have in Wimbledon is the total opposite. We've actually got trains line, and then the town centre happened around that. And what happened quite early on in Edwardian times is that the suburban streets began to get built before the town centre actually happens. And what we now find is this juxtaposition of commercial town centre buildings right in the back gardens of Victorian houses. It's an odd juxtaposition, but it exists, and it always has. As the timeline goes through Wimbledon, there's a few absolute horrors of stuff happening in the 70s and 80s. And no town in Britain is unique from that. But what we found is Wimbledon has always gone through this period of recycling itself. A lot of the 70s and 80s buildings we see now, 60s, 70s, we thought they were bomb damage, because normally they are. And Wimbledon they weren't. It's just somebody decided to knock down nice buildings and put up the one back. So Wimbledon's got a history of self-regenerating itself. Similarly, the train station. The 1910s train station got replaced in the 30s. The beautiful town hall up there in the 1800s got replaced in the 30s. Wimbledon's always recycled itself because it can't grow out. And that recycling's always happened every time a huge change in transport happens. So it's when the trains extended, when the Croydon line came in, when the tram line happened. And I think with Crossrail too, I know it's caused a lot of anxiety and worry, but that could next situation of Wimbledon because of transport. It's a historic thing, and Wimbledon and Crossrail building the same. This plan is not a plan for how we fit Crossrail into Wimbledon. This is us setting our stall out for the quality aspirations we want for the town centre, for which we expect Crossrail and everything else to fit. This doesn't work on the screen, so I may have a lot to dwell on it too much. In effect, this summarises the master plan process we've gone through. This structure is based on a Danish urbanist, Jan Gehl, who I'm a huge fan of. And what he proposes is when you plan towns and cities, it's not all about the buildings and how they look. That's just the backdrop. Really successful places is where the public space feels good, where the streets feel comfortable, and there's a human scale, and there's an activity. So to give an example of that, if you walk down Wimbledon Hill Road, it's quite nice. It's got little shops all down it. It actually does it 4 or 5 stories above. You don't see that because you see the widescreen. As a human, you see the widescreen. You experience the street, you don't look up. If you walk down Hartford Road, you walk down the back end of Morrison's, it's garret, it's fire exit doors, it's black walls, it's rubbish. So instantly we know what makes a good place and what doesn't. And the master plan picks up on that as a human experience. We do have to talk about buildings, and we do. But for me, it's about the puppets, the people, the puppet spaces, and then the buildings. And we designed the master plan in that format. This has all gone through workshops with you guys. Many of you were there, recognise faces. We're now at the concept design stage of the master plan. And so what we're going to do next week is have it online. It's just totally open to comment. We're not doing questionnaires, we're just saying, we think this is what you told us, feedback. And then we can turn it into plan and policies next year. This is a very old picture. So out of the workshops, I think I've shown this before, but I'll reiterate it. In the workshops, we actually ask people to point on a map what you like and what you not like about Wimbledon. Green stickers, many people liked it. Red stickers, people hated it. We have 94 maps out of those workshops, and when we collate all that information together, we get a pattern of Wimbledon where there's not a lot of green. The green tends to be the conservation areas, the listed buildings, naturally. The red tends to be sward, and the amber, folk are better than about. Now, when we talk about places and planning, because I have to look long term for the future, it is a bit about optimism and how things might change. We've got a town centre here where most residents have said they don't like it. And that's really odd. From that, we can pick out what people like. It's about the human scale, some of the streets, some of the spaces. What people don't like, clearly, is actually what was described earlier through planning. There's a lot of stuff that becomes mediocre because it gets designed by a committee because everyone's involved. And that waters down good architecture. It dumbs everything down. So what we found out from the workshops is people do have an appetite for boldness. People do have an appetite for maybe taller buildings if they're well designed. What we've never got to grips with is what does good quality look like? How do you even know what that is like? So we have to go to it. So just to iterate, the master plan area is generally the town centre. It doesn't touch residential streets at all. It's all the commercial town centre. So that's from Mansell Road, Wimbledon Hill Road, through to Merton Road. And we've also included the trade tracks from Gap Road down to Dundonald Yards. And that's because this plan looks towards 2040. And Wimbledon does have to grow. We're managing growth now, we're getting planning applications all the time. There's strong investor confidence here, and that change is managed. But once that happens, what next? Do we rocket skywards like other town centres, or actually do we look at the air that isn't built on yet and focus development there? So over the tracks is going to be a key move. And that's our strategy for growth. So if you know Wimbledon now, it's a linear town centre. It's practically a one-street town. A very busy one-street town, half our village jobs in there. So it's a very productive, popular place. looking ahead 15, 20 years, we think the growth will actually be north-south. And what that does is change the dynamics of the town centre. Instead of being a linear, it becomes like a cross, and the station area kind of becomes the heart of that new town. So this is our proposed strategy. Apologies for the presentation, the slides is not clever, but all of this will be available to you online. What we've actually proposed here, this is the proposed building blocks for a new Wimbledon. And what the plan proposes is where development might happen, what size and form it might happen. It does not design the buildings. No council in the world designs the buildings unless it's for the council. But what we have to do is allow the freedom of architects to come forward with quality design, but we use this as a framework to shape it. And to some extent, if we are agreed on the layout and height and size of things, we can deal with that with developers quickly and focus on getting quality right. So what the plan proposes here is there's a historic core to Wimbledon, which is the Broadway, which we're not proposing really to change too much through the, at the top end and the middle end of Queen's Road. That's where your Victorian terraces are, and actually we've just completed a project to restore the Queen's Road curve using developers' money. So we get the value of heritage. This isn't about flattening everything. What this does do is flatten a lot of the buildings you essentially like. And actually, a lot of them from the 70s and 80s, the leases are coming to an end, the owners do want to reinvest in it, but what developers want is certainty. And I don't think they do get that at the moment from our planning service, from us as a community. So what this plan does is try to at least put something out there which people can respond to. Longer term, we're looking at if we develop all the tracks, what that does is begin to stitch Wimbledon together. I don't want to say back together because it's always been split by the railway. But what you can actually begin to see there is the existing streets, just north of Woodside, can come right across the railway. Same down in Darwin Yards, there's existing streets down in McDonald's. Well, we can just extend the streets there, that's still good quality neighbourhoods. But these are new neighbourhoods for 2030s. Not everything will happen that quickly. This is long-term stuff. Fundamentally, one of the key changes blocks, we call it, is around St George's Roads. We're getting developer interest perfectly square blocks. These blocks are laneways. When you're in, and it sets up a whole new type of here and more people are visiting. Pocket parks, all of that. It's famous. So the plan shows a layout. We've also offered advice on height and massing. I'm sure that will be controversial one way or another, but we're putting it out there anyway. Because the council thinks that's a good, what we're going to show for heights. It's a decent enough balance between probably what people want and what developers want, and the truth is also somewhere in the middle. But when we're talking about recycling existing buildings, you do have to get enough capital value out of redevelopment, otherwise it just doesn't work. And I think sticking with the term we've got now isn't good enough. So I think we do have to set a level of growth. We proposed that for and not only growth. I'll come back to the 3D image in a minute, that's the last bit. We have helpfully through a lot of the workshops pinned down what we mean is good, what's good about Wimbledon in terms of design. I'll just take 2 minutes here, then open to questions. People keep asking what's Wimbledon's character, what's its DNA? And up until kind of post-war 60s architectural era, it was quite well defined in Wimbledon. All your very important civic buildings were white Portland stone or limestone. So that's, this is your town. It's the cathedral churches, the town hall, the stations. So your big important buildings were white. Next step down, your other civic buildings, the library, the police station, the old fire station, the theatre, the back buildings. They're red, green and centre colour. And then you move further down, most normal other buildings were yellow London stock brick with a bit of white detail. Now that's not entirely uncommon across London, but that defined pattern is quite fixed for Wimbledon, and that pattern should be eroded through time. Now, I'm not suggesting we revert back to some Victorian theme park. It's not Main Street Disneyland. But I've picked examples of elsewhere in London and some of Wimbledon, where you can still pick up this DNA and do it in a contemporary way, so you still get the feeling it feels Wimbledon again. I think we've just lost too much of that. So the examples here, the white curved one, that's Finsbury Circus, that's just been built because of Crossrail 1. It sits in amongst the Victorian Grand Terrace, but because we've used good materials and the proportions are right, it's still contemporary. It's a cracking office in Roadside. The one down the bottom's on Aldwych Strand. That's Bartley Homes, which has done 8 stories of flats in there. They've cleverly hidden 2 stories in the roof and done that Parisian style roof. And I think what a lot we see in planning is just flat roof buildings, because people are frightened of height. Whereas in actual fact, if you give things a roof scape, it makes the town more interesting. And you get more development behind it. So Wellington House, I think when the rappers come off that, you'll be quite pleased with that one, on Mansell Road. And then Stage 3 is with yellow brick and green glazed tiles. Again, quite Wimbledon, we think green. So there is ways of doing it. I just don't think we ask the right questions. I don't know what the public think of all of this. Therefore, I'm not confident enough to have this fight with the developer. But once this consultation's happened and we get your feedback, me and other planning team will be happy to tell developers this is how Wimbledon wants it. So the consultation's totally open for you to tell us what you think. That is scary about the building things. There we go. So, what we're proposing in terms of a tall building strategy, and I should say this is supplementary to our existing tall building policy, which says we'll build up tall air buildings around St George's Roads and around the YMCA. And sorry, the YMCA is cut off the map because we're still drawing this for next week. Now, when everyone talks about tall buildings, and I've heard it umpteen times at the community forum, people keep banging on about Croydon, and they don't want Wimbledon to Croydon. I'm fed up hearing that. It's not nice that we criticise a neighbouring town. No one's ever suggested Wimbledon goes like Croydon. This level of growth, we are talking around St George's Road 8, 10, and then 12, 14 stories on top of the train line. These are not towers, these are just big buildings. If you go to Barcelona and walk down the streets there, you don't think it's full of towers, because those square Barcelona blocks are 6, 7, 8 stories tall. There's also a study done by the Building Heights. The study by the New London Architecture Centre has looked at there's 500 odd tall buildings with planning permission allowed to be built in London.
Sorry, could you just point out the alarm? Where is the station?
That's the station. That's the old town hall with the glass bit behind the bridge centre. Broadway.
Yeah. Where the ones?
Horizontal.
Oh, so town hall, theatre, YMCA should be here. We haven't got it yet.
Yeah. So how tall is the station?
I'll come back to that question in a minute about how tall the station is.
Sorry, where are all those really tall buildings? I can't quite get them there.
Right, shall I'll point to the map, it'll be easier. Come on, we've got 10 minutes, so I'll wrap up and then take questions. So the bits you'll recognise now which haven't changed. You've got the Rotunda, the Town Hall, the old pub, Prince of Wales. Yeah. This doesn't exist yet because it's air above the tracks. Nothing's built here yet. This is above the train line. So what you've got now is Wimbledon Bridge House in the car park. We know Crossrail in the last consultation said they might have to get rid of that anyway. So what we said is, well, if they had to get rid of Wimbledon Bridge House, make a new town square at the heart of the town. So you have Plaza Menor, if you're in Madrid. And above the tracks, we're saying, put the taller buildings here. We're not in people's back gardens here. This is just commercial buildings facing commercial buildings. It's the least sensitive part of town to put them. So this scale of development, we think is appropriate for a scale of growth for Wimbledon, and this is 2030s. It's quite a way. I talked about tall buildings. There's 500 with planning permission in London now. Example, Croydon, they're doing 30 and 60 stories. I'm proposing 40 and 60 max. So we think we're pitching this at the right level. I know you'll have reviews on this and other bits. All I'll say is the document's 120 pages, it's huge. Take your time and read it and digest it. The consultation's going to run for 2 months because it needs that. and me and my team are happy to come and talk to you in detail. I'm sorry I can't do it justice here tonight, but we can. And just finally, in terms of engagement, I did mention I care about public spaces as well as buildings. We are teaming up with a Spanish architect practice who won a competition a while back, and they won a competition where the prize was Play Wimbledon. And basically what they've recognised is streets are something to be enjoyed, so why don't we have some fun in them? So we're proposing to do some pop-up seating and pop-up events around the town centre, and it's to test out how new public spaces might work. So if you know the area outside Theatre, there's a double road at Theatre. We've already 2 roads, and we closed one off temporarily at Christmas last year to see the work, and it was fine. So what we want to do is actually make a proper pedestrian space there. So we're going to do pop-up, well, I say pop-up, it's like plywood seats, all temporary stuff. And that's so we can test whether how do people use the space. Is it popular? And what it means is we've not spent millions of pounds on granite. We've actually tried it out cheap first to test it, and then if people like it or will adapt to it, then we'll do it properly. And we use developers' money for all that development. So, and also the other space is just out here, St Mark's Place. It's a bit forlorn at the moment because the trees died. It's a bit of it could be better. The art space could follow into it. So we're going to do a public space workshop, which you're all welcome to, where we're going to actually on the street, redesign that street, and get your input on that. So this isn't all about buildings in the future. I really care about how making the spaces we've got now better, and we've got bits of money already to start doing that. So we've got public space workshops happening soon, keep an eye on the website, and then the master plan document will be online from Monday. And then what we're going to do is keep that consultation until December. My team will then collate all that information and feedback, and we hope to report that to Cabinet in January for agreement. After that point, the Planning Applications Committee can start using the plan to inform their decisions. Any questions?
Just four questions. So, Paul, thank you very much. So, can you just tell us? So can you just remind us where all this information will be available?
Yeah, so first and foremost, the Council's website, Merton/Future Wimbledon. If not Friday, certainly Monday, I'll get the documents on the website and you can check it there. The public space workshops, we will advertise it on there and on the Council's Twitter, but I don't know the date yet, it'll be sometime in October.
Okay, so with your permission, what I suggest we do is just had 3-second conversation before. He has agreed that either he or one of his team will come back to the December meeting. So my suggestion, we can take 1 or 2 questions tonight, but my suggestion is that you look at the website, digest the information. We've heard a lot tonight, and it's new to nearly all of us, it was new to me. So we digest this information. Please, I would encourage you to attend the workshops. Paul has agreed that he or one of his team will come back to the December 4th meeting. My undertaking to you is that we will have whatever time we need to get through every question and every comment on that occasion, and Paul has agreed that can then go into the consultation process. My suggestion, we have literally, I'll take 1 question from you, sir, but my suggestion is we have literally 5 minutes. What I'd like to do is wind up now, and after 1 question from the gentleman at the back who's very keen to speak, and then we can have 5 minutes to speak to Paul, to speak to Stephen, but the promise is that we will have a thorough and proper debate when we meet at the beginning of December. So 1 question from you, sir, and I'm going to wind up.
My question is how are we going to engage? Because you've got different types of engagement. How are we going to engage the younger generation? Because Wimbledon is now a very young town. And without any disrespect to anybody else, they can have to live with it for the future. So in 2040, a lot of people we're not going to live to see that. And if we live with them, it's really important to have people in their 20s, 30s. It's their opinion. They look today. They know how they want to live. The world has moved on. So I think to get the correct opinion, you need to ask right about it. You've just got to do that. So how can we get perhaps that kind of like, you know, the book that we have in policies, that kind of presentation, just to get people to catch it, because they're not always going to be one thing.
Okay, thank you very much. So the response to that was how we're going to engage younger people. was an issue with the workshops, the average age is 52. And you're right, we're planning a town. That's my retirement project. I'll be sensitive with that. We are already talking to the council school groups about how we get to the primary schools as part of their geography curriculum. We have been asked to engage digitally, and I don't yet know how really we're going to do that because we just don't have time to spend all day in social media. But I will work with the council's comms team to get more out digitally. We are also going to do street stencils, so just to catch people's imagination, the website Spray in the Street is temporary, it will rain off. But we do need to do a bit more than just say it's on the council website and a town hall meeting should have received.
Maybe you could put some banners in the town to advertise it, because it's a real opportunity.
And to fair, that's why I'm getting a good 2 months. I mean, there's a little bit of time now, we could go longer. But I think it is an important topic, so we need a lot of people's input. So yeah, I get the point.
Well, thank you. Very, very, very quickly.
You say about the tall buildings like around St George's Road now, and you mentioned it in the same context as Barcelona. So does that mean the walkways and everything that you're saying about putting in between them will be wide like in Barcelona? Because otherwise you've got tall buildings, it makes it very hard.
So that's about the block structures. They're not identical to Barcelona, I wish. I mean, if it's new streets, you can have laneways quite close. If you go to City Hall in London, there's the route to City Hall. The buildings are big and close. But yeah, you don't want dark streets everywhere.
Because you walk around places now with these buildings like that.
We need to find a balance of it. We need to find a balance of the old street structure and then the new ones. We do a bit different kinds.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's quarter past. One of the reasons we have to be so strict, just so you know, is that wherever we are, obviously someone has to be here.